The week is finally here, guys. Gencon is upon us. We got a whole awesome regional coming up and a fun weekend full of My Hero Academia collectible card game. But before we get into that, my name is Phil Birch from UNFUN Stuff, and I got another video for you about Gen Con preparedness and kind of what we should expect to see, I suppose, this week. Full of fun, full of events. First of all, I would say definitely, before we get into it, please be sure to hit the subscription button. Make sure you like the video and turn those notifications on if you want to see more of my content, which definitely is more meta reliant, and also occasional videos to help people kind of figure out how to play the game just a little bit better from someone who's been playing for forever. So, without further ado, let's get into it. So, I would say this week for Gen Con, we are looking at a large handful of events, right? And everybody's going to want to play in most of them because you get super cool promos. Everybody's seen the Gen Con promos. They're very unique. They're super cool. They're awesome. But we've got two provisionals. We've got a regional. We've got a teams event. We've got a bunch of demoing for their board game if you want to get a couple copies of Let's Fight Bad Guys promo as well. And honestly, I'm very excited. I'm hyped to be there, and I think it's going to be a lot of fun. I think that this is going to be a little bit more like an origin situation, though, where people are going to experience an intense amount of burnout if they don't, take their time to get their own relaxing in and a little bit more like chill events for the first couple, right? We're going to an event that's going to have a couple of provisionals as well as regionals, and I would say that unless you really think you can mentally focus throughout an entire week on everything, just try and have fun, guys. Step one here is those provisionals, man. I think those are going to be really awesome. It's going to be a lot of fun to see you guys, but I wouldn't take that and sit down and really hope and focus and drive home that that's going to be the most competitive scene you're going to be in this weekend. I would honestly dial it back, man. Take it easy on those games if you are going to be at Gen Con. For the regional, though, it's going to be honestly like a knockdown drag out fight. I'm expecting a lot of longer games, a lot of people going close to, if not into time, just because of the nature of how I feel the meta shakes up right now. We do have a couple of our very fast decks. We have Life Asui that is running really ridiculous times, right? Like they're just playing as many attacks as they draw, and they're playing all the card draw in the entire world, and they're not really worried about their defense because their offense is crazy. We also have like fourth kinds that can kill you incredibly quickly, and Tokiyami the same way. Things that we've already seen tried and true, but a little bit of those decks are struggling because people have switched the meta over to more of like a six-hand size meta, right? We have Kirishima too, who's playing excellent defense. We've got Jiro, who can scout and make sure her opponent isn't necessarily doing the best job of killing her through looking at your opponent's deck and setting things up necessarily for success, but for failure in times. We have Ochakos. We've got this, that, the other. We've got a lot of big guys running around, and I think that because of the actual health pool of some of these characters now, we're seeing a lot of 27 health characters instead of 20. We should be expecting our games to look a little bit longer. Now, obviously, we know that like Asui is going to be a big offender, always is for the meta, right? Like she is just going to be this over looming cloud until something eventually changes, and if nothing changes, she's going to look that way forever probably. But the Life Asui decks in particular are doing things in a much more impactful and scary way, right? These decks aren't worried about defense, which is scary because they're not trying to block. They're trying to draw up their hand on turn 2 or turn 3 and have 6 attacks because their decks are 20 attacks and like 30 non-attacks. And they're playing a ton of card draw with Race at Go and Excited for Blood and preparing for battle and this and passing the torch and all that stuff, right? Like they're playing just a ton of card draw and making it kind of scary, right? It's scary to play into something like that where they can just keep playing cards, keep readying cards to their effects, and it just keeps going, right? It's like just a cycle of things Asu would normally be doing, but like if they check all 5s, you're probably dead because they're going to present like 70 damage to you. That's scary, right? But then you also have like the opposite side of the coin where you have Momos, like Momo off of Life, same symbol, playing the game completely differently, right? She's trying to just play defense, wait for an opportunity to be able to kill you with selectively grabbing a weapon that can do enough damage and just playing a very solid game, right? Where you are going to be putting the pressure into her and she's just going to be laughing it off. Having what essentially amounts to release on her character card, right? Like releases +2 your check, she's destroyed for -2 speed. It's the same thing realistically. Is incredible, right? Because a lot of these life decks are vying to try and get release. A lot of air decks are trying to get release out so they can play better defense. And she's just has it. She's just hanging out with it the entire time. Um, and also another defensive deck being Kirishima too, right? Like a deck that's able to play such sound defense because his board is very rarely committed, and through his own effect, he can draw more cards on defense and also essentially half block an attack, right? It's a better half block on attack for free. And that's good because that means that the opponent has to have one more attack or two more attacks throughout the game, depending on how you are able to use your effect effectively, right? We don't really talk about Mineta very much anymore, but I think that in this particular instance, like this particular brand of meta, I think that he would be a strong contender, right? He is a character that if you give time to set up, you give time to play the game, which a lot of decks are doing, he can be very strong. He can be very, like, defensively lock you out of the game in a lot of ways. And then we have I guess the combo decks, I'm going to call them, like Jiros and Ochakos and stuff, where they're just trying to play really long, scary strings of like either air with the charge package, getting to play like Unwavering Slash to build in the stadium, and then double jab pummels, zero gravity lifts, stuff like that. Or we have the combo deck of Staff Strike, right? We have the Staff Strike Jiro that I expect that actually a lot of people will play because it's not a terribly difficult deck to maneuver, and it's really fun, right? And fun kind of sells in the My Hero Academia card game, right? Because you can have competitive and fun in the same version, and it's not entirely like locked and gated between just one meta deck and you seeing what happens, right? So I can expect to see stuff like that too. Um, but I think that you can put yourself into good positions against pretty much all of these decks um, without having to sacrifice too much of your own identity within your deck. It'd be very easy for me to just say, hey, like just play Eraserhead or just play meta 2 or just play this, that, and the other as a character to really mitigate some of the meta. But I don't think that those are the necessary answers that people want to hear to play their anti-meta stuff, right? I think that what you really want to be looking for are cards that you can slot either into your main deck or side deck that can really help you in these matchups. Like if you're playing any of the symbols with Apathetic, I think Apathetic is going to have a ton of value in this format. There's a lot of cards that re-ready themselves that people are counting on to play on turn 2. There's card draw, like I've already established, where people are looking to just see those extra cards, and Apathetic is an answer to both of those cards. We're pretty much what I really like about where we're headed is I think that a ton of decks, not necessarily all top decks or all bottom decks or middle decks or any like that, can play a bunch of spot answers to cards. Irrefutable Force of Nature, like that's another great one for answering either their cards that untap or their card draw, because those are the things that in this format are very oppressive. You don't want people fixing their board state, really. You don't want people drawing into their kill turn through like multiple means, right? If it's on their attacks, sure, but their board should be vulnerable, and I think that there is a lot of vulnerability in this format from our own cards selection. I think it's important to have cards like Faith Shield or like Sticky Balls in some instances to help gunk up the gears for Asui. Faith Shield does a great job. The Life Asuis obviously can't play Stadium, so like they just have to play through it or pass. Compressive Weights is decent in that same regard. Confused to get rid of Kick or Ranged. A lot of stuff that just keeps the card in their card pool. You can play Fulfilled My Duty. Just stuff like that is going to find tremendous value against the aggro decks, while I still think having enough value against some of the slower decks, right? Like Kirishima is relying on pretty slow moves to do most of his things. So like if you can block with a face shield to flip his stuff over, then he suddenly can't use his Texas smashes to really combo you out. And also you're getting value because you're not tapping as many cards for it. Or even playing against like the air decks, right? I mean, they obviously are going to have stadium at points, but flipping over their throw, like their zero gravity lift is huge. It's crucial. Um, but if we're trying to answer specifically air decks, like obviously there are answers to stadium. Irrefutable is another great one. You could play Learning the Standards because a lot of those decks aren't building the card honestly. They're trying to build it in with Unwavering Slash. Learning the Standards is great against that. Learning Standards is great against Asui in some regards. There's just a lot of really cool, I think, tech pieces that I think people should be looking at for either main decks and side decks. And it covers such a wide range of symbols at this point. Like, there's a lot of really cool stuff that isn't just go forward aggro, and I don't think people give it enough credit or look at it deeply enough with enough like thought behind it to try and like play it. I think it's a really fun time to be playing the game because there are so many answers to things. There are so many cool ways to play the game, and I don't think that there necessarily is anything wrong with trying to kill your opponent on turn 2 every single game. I think that can be fun in its own regard. But I would love it when people would branch out to try new things, because I think that that's kind of what the game's all about, right? Like, I think that you could do very well with a deck that is set up to combat the meta and not necessarily be one of the top characters. If you are able to slot enough good answers into your deck, I think I could pretty much see one of those decks making a run. Or like a deck that is specifically teched out to either beat Kirishima or Asui, because I think those will be the two biggest decks. So like if you run to like a hot streak and you just play against all the things you're trying to beat, I think that'd be cool. I think it's cool and I think it's doable. So that's my 2 cents on the meta itself and like what I think can help combat it in certain ways, especially for the people going to Gencon. I think that's the most important. That's what my video is really for here. I will say though, you are going to be at one of the most fun events pretty much ever. I don't know. I love going to Gen Con. We used to have our UVS used to have Worlds at Gen Con, and every single year it was so much fun. Just try and give yourself some time throughout the week. I know you all are going to want to love to play My Hero Academia, but not all the events are going to last forever. Give yourself some time to go and enjoy the con. The dealer room is awesome. It's a fantastic, like, just sprawling oasis of nerd shit, and it's very cool. There's tons of panels. You can go check out downtown Indianapolis. There's like last time I was there, they had open container. You just walk around with a beer. So pretty sure that's probably still a thing. You just like walk around with your beer. Go check out a bar. Go check out like a lot of the cool places. They have like breweries and shit usually set up there too. It's like, it's really awesome. Gen Con is a very, very fun time, and I think that if you are strictly focused on playing just cards the whole weekend, you're going to be missing out on an awesome experience. But yeah. Anyway, guys, that is my Gen Con survival guide. Hopefully you found it a little bit helpful. Hopefully you are thinking a little bit more about what card and pieces you can tech into your decks to really kind of get the leg up on what this meta is prepping. It's going to be a tough one. It's going to be a really hard fought, I'm pretty sure, for everybody all weekend. So I look forward to seeing you guys there. If you see me, please come and say hi. I will have character cards on me this time to sign and hand out to anybody who asks. I have Sharpies in my bag right now. I have the character cards in my bag right now. I cannot forget either of those things. Anyway, dudes, thanks for tuning in. I will be releasing one final How to Get Away with Meta right before the event. It'll probably be on Momo, because that's the only thing I can think of right now that is in such a powerful position in the meta that I think people need to be aware of. But be sure to, once again, subscribe, hit the notification button. Leave me some comments on what you thought about the video and what you would really like for me to talk about next week. I'm still looking for a next topic of a video that's not right before a major event. So, thanks again, guys, and I will talk to y'all later. See ya.